Before he was the man in black, Johnny Cash was a man unraveling. The crowds adored him, the spotlight defined him, yet inside he was falling apart. Fame gave him everything he wanted, except peace. And then came June Carter, bright, fearless, and carrying a warmth he hadn't felt in years. She would one day save his soul, but first she almost destroyed it. Their story did not begin with grand declarations or poetic confessions. It began in quiet exchanges, in the subtle understanding conveyed through music, in moments of attention shared and held in restraint. Both were bound by circumstance, by marriages, societal expectations, and the fragile reputations they were compelled to protect. Yet the pull between them was undeniable. Each note sung together, each harmony, became a private revelation of longing and hope, of the yearning for connection that neither could fully articulate in words. The world would later remember the scandal, the whispers in Nashville, the gossip columns, the arrests, the publicized lapses. But the story behind the headlines is not about infidelity for its own sake. It is about the fragility of a human soul, the redemptive power of love, and the quiet faith that can save a man who has nearly lost himself. This is the story of the affair that nearly destroyed Johnny Cash and the grace that saved him. Johnny Cash arrived in Nashville as a young man possessed of extraordinary talent and unshakable restlessness. His early life had been shaped by hardship, by poverty, by loss, by the kind of early experiences that etched both resilience and sorrow into his character. Music became his refuge, a sanctuary in which he could give voice to pain he had never been able to speak aloud, and simultaneously a weapon, a force with which to command attention, to stake his claim in a world that often seemed indifferent. Each note he sang carried the weight of years lived in quiet struggle, each performance a testament to the survival of a spirit that refused to be broken. He understood, with a clarity that few could fathom, that ambition was a double-edged sword. Success would bring recognition, yet with it would come pressures, temptations, and scrutiny that could unravel even the strongest resolve. And Johnny, despite this awareness, carried himself with a singular intensity that drew notice wherever he went, a magnetism that invited both admiration and unease, a presence that was impossible to ignore. June Carter entered his orbit with the same blend of poise, energy, and magnetic resilience that had carried her from the childhood stages of the Carter family to national recognition. She was heir to a storied musical lineage, deeply rooted in the traditions of country music, yet she also possessed a modern sensibility, a clarity of mind, a fortitude, and a subtle audacity that made her remarkable in her own right. She had been trained to observe, to perform with precision, to command the stage while remaining attuned to the subtleties of the world around her. When their paths first crossed backstage, and in the quiet corners of the Opry's green rooms, the connection was immediate. It was not loud or ostentatious. It did not announce itself in flamboyant gestures. Instead, it manifested in a shared recognition, a quiet alignment that almost no one else could perceive, but that was unmistakable to them. To the outside world, their interactions might have seemed like the camaraderie of two talented performers, a blend of charm and wit, laughter and professionalism. But beneath the surface, it was something far more profound. Every song they sang together became a reflection of unspoken truths, a mirror to the emotions they had not yet dared to articulate. Their harmonies were intimate in a way that transcended technique, their phrasing and timing echoing the subtle rhythms of understanding and longing that only they could share. Each note, each pause, carried an undercurrent of meaning, a language of hearts speaking to one another beyond words. At first, there was awe. There was the exhilaration of discovering in another a kindred spirit, capable of seeing past the public persona, past fame and performance, to the fragile, raw humanity beneath. And with each passing rehearsal, each backstage conversation, each fleeting glance across the stage, that initial spark grew quietly, steadily, like embers nurtured into a flame. It illuminated not only the profound joy of connection, but also the danger inherent in intimacy. They were bound by circumstance, by the expectations of family, by public scrutiny, by their own personal commitments, and yet the possibility of love, of emotional truth, began to take root, a subtle but unyielding force that would shape both their lives in ways neither could yet comprehend. The early 1960s were years of both soaring achievement and creeping instability for Johnny Cash. His fame had reached a level few could have imagined. Sold-out tours, radio play, and the reverent attention of fans who hung on every word he sang. And yet, behind the curtain of public admiration, his life was unraveling in subtle but inexorable ways. The road that had once promised opportunity became a corridor of isolation. Nights spent in motels, hours lost to the hum of car engines and the glare of stage lights, left little room for reflection or rest. Music, which had once been his salvation, became a mirror reflecting the hollows he could no longer ignore. With success came the temptations that often accompany fame. Pills taken to stay awake, alcohol consumed to quiet the restlessness, and the relentless pressure to perform created a delicate web of dependency. Johnny's physical vitality and immense talent masked the growing fragility of his body and spirit. Those who observed him only saw energy and charisma. Few perceived the weight he carried in quiet solitude. Even as he walked among crowds, played countless stages, and delivered performances that seemed effortless, he battled an internal gravity that threatened to pull him under. It was during this period of volatility that his bond with June Carter deepened in ways both subtle and profound. Their music together became a vessel for emotion, too complex for spoken words. Harmonies, phrasing, and tempo conveyed longing, admiration, and unspoken empathy. Each performance together was more than entertainment. It was an unintentional confession, a mutual acknowledgement of the burdens each carried. The connection existed in fleeting glances backstage, in the pauses between notes, in shared laughter that carried undertones of both understanding and tension. Yet the spiraling forces in Johnny's life did not pause for reflection or discretion. His marriage to Vivian Liberto faltered under the strain of constant touring and mounting personal demons. Homecomings offered no reprieve. The walls of domestic life became fraught with unspoken disappointment, frustration, and quiet heartbreak. Meanwhile, June confronted her own moral and emotional reckonings, aware of the precariousness of their bond and the far-reaching consequences of intimacy that extended beyond the music. Both recognized the potential for devastation, yet both were drawn inexorably to the depth of the connection they shared. As Johnny's life moved further from stability, the consequences of his choices became unavoidable. Arrests for drug possession, publicized absences, and missed shows illustrated the tangible results of a private unraveling. His reputation, once a source of pride, now teetered on the edge of scrutiny and censure. The world, largely unaware of the nuances of his personal struggles, saw only fragments, a scandal, a misstep, a headline. But within these moments existed the human truth, a man wrestling with his failings, caught between the demands of talent, the pull of temptation, and the quiet, unwavering presence of a woman who could see him in full, unadorned, and still care for the man beneath the fame. In this tension lay the essence of the spiral, the juxtaposition of brilliance and vulnerability, of desire and restraint, of love that promised salvation and choices that threatened destruction. It was a delicate dance on a knife's edge, one that would shape the next chapters of Johnny Cash's life, revealing both the fragility of a soul under pressure and the latent capacity for redemption. Every note sung, every tour endured, every quiet backstage moment carried with it the weight of potential disaster, and unknowingly, the seeds of eventual grace. By the mid-1960s, the spiral had reached a devastating apex. Johnny Cash's life, once marked by unstoppable momentum and artistic brilliance, had begun to unravel in both subtle and unmistakable ways. What once appeared to the public as effortless charm and commanding stage presence masked the precariousness of his existence. Arrests for drug possession punctuated the headlines, each one a stark reminder of choices that had long been left unchecked. Public scrutiny intensified, magnifying every misstep, every lapse, every moment of vulnerability that he could neither hide nor control. Beneath the surface, however, the true unraveling was not in the headlines, but in the quiet erosion of his sense of self. The man who had captivated audiences with his deep voice and magnetic presence now faced the creeping realization that his personal life and professional identity were collapsing in tandem. The stage, once a sanctuary, now reflected the turbulence of a soul in crisis, a mirror of exhaustion, despair, and isolation. The gravity of this descent culminated in an episode that would later define the trajectory of his redemption. In Tennessee, at a moment when exhaustion, addiction, and emotional desolation had intertwined into a near inescapable darkness, Johnny withdrew from the world entirely. He sought solitude in a remote wilderness, a landscape that offered both refuge and confrontation. Drugs and exhaustion had dulled his senses yet sharpened the awareness of his own fragility. In the stillness of the Tennessee wilderness, he confronted the stark reality of the choices he had made, the relationships strained or broken, and the loneliness that had shadowed him since his youth. It was in this seclusion, in a cave nestled near the Cumberland Plateau, that the depth of his turmoil became fully apparent, not just the physical toll of addiction and fatigue, but the emotional weight of guilt, shame, and unresolved longing that had accumulated over decades. The collapse of body and spirit was almost complete. The man who once commanded attention with every note now teetered on the edge of mortality, surrounded by silence and the unrelenting presence of his own reflection. It was in this abyss that a subtle, almost imperceptible shift began. June Carter, who had remained a quiet figure in the margins of his life, re-emerged, not in drama or spectacle, but with a steady, unwavering presence that provided the first glimmer of hope. Her return was deliberate, measured, and suffused with understanding. She did not arrive with judgment or reproach, nor did she offer easy solutions to the turmoil that had accumulated over years. Instead, she brought the calm steadiness of a companion who recognized that true healing could not be rushed, could not be demanded, and could not be imposed. Through her presence, Johnny found a mirror of patience and stability, an invitation to confront the failings, fears, and vulnerabilities he had long buried beneath layers of performance, bravado, and addiction. In the quiet of those days, her influence became a foundation. The cave, the wilderness, and the isolation were no longer just spaces of despair. They became the settings in which the first steps toward recovery, redemption, and enduring love could quietly take root. Through her steadfast support, Johnny began to recognize that confronting one's darkness is not an act of shame, but an essential passage toward restoration. June's presence was not an intrusion into his struggle, but a guiding force, a steady light illuminating a path out of the spiral, a path that would eventually lead him back to life, to purpose, and to a love capable of sustaining him through the decades to come. The late 1960s ushered in a period of profound transformation for Johnny Cash, one marked not by headlines or public acclaim, but by quiet, deliberate acts of personal reconstruction. Sobriety was not adopted as a show of virtue, nor as a signal to the world that the man in black had been tamed. It was an intimate, painstaking commitment, a decision to reclaim his own life from the chaos that had threatened to consume him. Each day demanded vigilance, humility, and an awareness of the fragility that had been built into years of excess and neglect. For Johnny, sobriety became the foundation upon which the rest of his existence could be rebuilt, a reclamation of dignity, a restoration of purpose, and a conscious effort to reconnect with the man he had been before fame and addiction had distorted his sense of self. In this journey, June Carter became an unshakable presence, a constant and steadying force, whose influence extended far beyond the realm of music. Her support was neither obtrusive nor theatrical. It was rooted in understanding, empathy, and patience. She guided him through the painstaking process of repairing relationships frayed by years of neglect and misjudgment, gently offering stability without diminishing his autonomy. She reminded him of his inherent worth, not as a star of the stage but as a human being capable of love, responsibility, and redemption. Her influence allowed him to confront the shadows of his past without fear, and to embrace the possibility of a life defined by integrity and emotional honesty. Their partnership evolved into a marriage marked by simplicity and profound depth. It was a union that did not seek validation from the public eye. It was not built on spectacle or performative gestures. Instead, it was grounded in mutual recognition of the pain each had endured, a shared understanding of the scars left by years of struggle, and a commitment to nurture each other's growth. Music continued to serve as their bridge, but its purpose deepened. Every song they recorded, every stage they shared, carried with it layers of testimony, a narrative imbued with endurance, grace, and the resilience born from hardship. The harmonies were more than artistic expression. They were reflections of a lived journey, an audible record of the slow but inexorable work of redemption. In the years that followed, the dynamic of their marriage demonstrated the reciprocity of love and support. Johnny credited June for sustaining him, for holding the line when he could not hold himself, yet the truth was mutual. June found in him a partner who understood the vulnerability inherent in being both a woman and a performer, navigating the complexities of public life. Together, they navigated the delicate balance between personal growth and shared responsibility, showing that redemption is not a single event but a continuous evolving process. It demanded patience, courage, and the willingness to confront past failings, rebuild trust, and honor the love that had survived both temptation and hardship. Through their partnership, Johnny and June Cash transformed their narrative from one of near destruction into a testament of hope. They embodied the truth that love, tempered by patience, grounded in respect, and nourished by faith, has the capacity to heal even the deepest wounds. Redemption was not a destination. It was the ongoing journey of two people who, despite past mistakes and vulnerabilities, chose to confront life together with openness, resilience, and unwavering commitment. In the quiet moments between performances, in the steadiness of shared routines, and in the intimacy of mutual understanding, they discovered that enduring love and emotional restoration are not merely possible, they are a lived, daily reality. The decades that followed showcased the fruits of their resilience. They toured together, performed together, and cultivated a life that balanced public visibility with private intimacy. Their home life, though occasionally disrupted by the pressures of fame, was rooted in stability, mutual respect, and shared purpose. The final chapter of their story arrived in 2003, when June Carter's death became the harbinger of Johnny's own decline. In the months that followed, his recordings and public appearances reflected an awareness of mortality, a meditation on loss, and a profound acknowledgement of the love that had sustained him. The depth of their bond became evident not only in the music they left behind, but in the continuity of devotion that extended beyond life itself. Their story, from secret connection to near destruction to redemption, exemplifies the capacity of human beings to transform pain into grace. It serves as a reminder that love, when combined with faith and patience, possesses the power to heal even the most profound wounds. The narrative of Johnny and June endures not as a tale of scandal, but as an enduring testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the transformative power of love. Johnny Cash's life demonstrates the complexity of human emotion, the precariousness of fame, and the quiet strength required to navigate personal failure. The affair that nearly destroyed him did not define the entirety of his existence. Rather, it became the threshold through which he emerged renewed, guided by the steadfast presence of June Carter. In the end, his legacy is not measured by the scandals or struggles that marked his youth, but by the enduring love that shaped his later years. Reflection, humility, and devotion transformed a life that had been on the edge into one that exemplified redemption, leaving behind a narrative of grace that continues to resonate. The world remembers the music, but the heart remembers the salvation that only a steadfast love can provide. For more emotional stories, check out this video.